Betty Achiro always looked forward to the day she would take down this house because it would mean she was going home. She lives with her 6 children in Aware camp for internally displaced people, or IDPs, in northern Uganda. But today is not the day Betty and her family goes home. She's moving to a new hut within the camp.
My hut was leaking and was not secure because people would come and take my things sometimes. When my neighbor was leaving, she donated her whole hut to me, so the new house is more secure and in better condition.
A 2-decade conflict between the Lord's Resistance Army, or LRA, and the Ugandan government displaced over 2 million people here. It has been 5 years since the LRA, notorious for abducting children and mutilating civilians, last attacked the north. Government efforts forced the rebels into neighboring countries like Sudan and DRC, where they have continued to attack civilians. Residents of the north have since been encouraged to leave the camps, and almost 3/4 of those who were displaced have returned home. Today, Gulu town, once overrun by the LRA, is a bustling trade center. But for Betty, like many others, it's not easy to go back to normal life. Betty's husband was abducted and killed by the LRA, and she says she's afraid to go back to their home.
The issue of land is even more difficult than the issues we faced during the LRA conflict. I fear that if I return home, I will be harassed, beaten, and chased away. Land disputes are a big problem. If I leave, maybe in December, I can't go to my husband's home. No one there will give me any land. I will have to go to my parents with all these children and beg for somewhere to build a home and some land to grow food.
The United Nations estimates that some 500,000 people remain in camps in northern Uganda. Humanitarian support for those who remain has greatly reduced. David Ochen is the chairman for Aware Camp, where over 29,000 IDPs still live.
It's very hard for people in the camps. Food is scarce. Those who have remained sell their labor to other communities who can afford to pay them. Some have small areas where they plant food, but last month was tough. Because of the drought, there was no harvest.
The IDP situation in Uganda's north is one of many all over Africa. There are 12 million internal refugees on the continent, which is half of the world's total population of IDPs.
Engaged in a very difficult task of...
Last month, African Union leaders and humanitarian experts met at a summit in Kampala and adopted a convention that obliges member states to protect people uprooted by conflict within their own countries.
Complex document, and that the parties needed to be assisted.
Unlike refugees who flee to another country and have a global UN agency dedicated to safeguarding their rights, IDPs have little or no protection.
Refugees do have, and have had for a long time, since the 1951 Convention and the OEU Convention, a very clearly recognized international status with a very clear and very effective institution to deal with them. And IDPs have never had that international legal status.
The convention needs 15 signatures from AU states to be ratified, and officials say it will be implemented next year.
Africa has the largest concentration of refugees and internally displaced. That's first and foremost. Secondly, also because there is no convention of its kind in the whole world. So this is the first time. And thirdly, it is because it is homegrown. It is the Africans themselves who have decided that this is a big problem, that if we are to move our continent forward, we need to address the causes of the problems. And one of the causes they have identified is the issue of internally displaced and refugees.
Back in Gulu, George Uma and his family are busy with their latest harvest. George has settled back home and has a large field of crops where he's training oxen to plow more land. During the conflict, he would sneak out of the camps to plant orange and mango trees at his homestead, risking capture by the LRA or arrest by the government. He had a message for the leaders at the summit in Kampala.
If I had the opportunity to speak at that conference, I would have highlighted the fact that prevention is better than cure. I would address any issue that leads to fighting and then displacement, where people are living in camps. It should not get to fighting and then solving issues thereafter.
George and other IDPs across the continent must influence the processes that follow the signing of the Kampala Agreement. And efforts to end the conflict should be on every African leader's mind, so they can make sure their people never have to be unwanted visitors in their own home.